Well, hey there, idiots. Welcome back to Observe. In today's video, we're going to be analyzing the nonverbal communication again of Steven, Shane, and Ryan from the channel Watcher. More on that in just a second. Let's go ahead and roll the intro first. I've been making an effort recently to get back into some of the hobbies of my younger days. I've been drawing more, playing more music, and dusting off some of my techie side. This has helped me fill my off time, my free time, if you will, with a little bit more enrichment for my brain. However, I have to be honest, there are some times that I just want to sit down and play games on my phone with little to no brain power and literally do nothing, something that I'm sure at least a few of you can probably relate to, especially on the weekends or days off of work. While I know it's not necessarily a bad thing to just simply sit down and have some downtime, today's sponsor allows me to play games on my phone and earn rewards while I do so. Introducing Mistplay. It's the loyalty app that every person who plays games on their phones or mobile devices needs. Like I mentioned, with Mistplay, you can discover new games and earn rewards while you play. The way it works is you install the Mistplay app and then browse their massive library of games. Then once you've found the game that you want to play, for instance, I personally have been on a little bit of a solitaire and mahjong kind of binge, you can download the game and begin playing immediately. While you play, you can earn points, which then can be used to redeem gift cards from top brands like Amazon, Walmart, Xbox, PlayStation, and quite a long list. Knowing that over $100 million worth of gift cards has already been redeemed also helped me and you rest more assured that everything is quite legitimate from the very get-go. So, if you're like me and occasionally appreciate spending a bit of downtime playing some games on your phone, head over to mistplay.com/observe or click the link in the description of this video to download Mistplay for free. And don't forget to use my code OBSERVE100 for an extra 100 points. Thanks again to Mistplay for sponsoring this video. And back to your regularly scheduled programming. Okay, for those of you who do not know, I just released a video on this channel in regards to an announcement made by the channel Watcher. If you haven't watched that video, go check that out first. That'll give context to this. Long story short, Watcher leaving YouTube kind of made a pretty roughly done announcement that was fairly rude and inconsiderate to the subscriber base, especially in regards to a monetary realm. In this video, they have released an apology, an update in regards to that. We'll talk about it as we go through it and make note of some of the nonverbals that we've been seeing. I've been hearing a lot of opinions tossed around, and a lot of people have some questions around this. So I think that's enough. Let's go ahead and dive in.
Hey everyone, last Friday we announced that we're leaving YouTube and launching our new streaming platform.
We messed up. A lot of you spoke out with extremely valid comments and concerns, and we want to take the time now to address those.
We've been gonna go ahead and pause here just to make note of a general setting. Obviously, they're on their normal set. That's something that kind of nullifies the background and makes it to where we're not feeling any level of manipulation from them on that point. That's a pretty good sign. Also, I have a very distinct feeling that this entire apology was scripted. Scripting on an apology has some pros and cons. On one side, you can assure that you're covering all of your bases. On the less good side of things, it can come across as detached and forced. So what this will really boil down to, since it's scripted, the words that they say are arguably very good. What we'll be paying attention to is whether or not it reflects non-verbally as well, and if so, where it reflects, to help us kind of get some of the backstory behind what they're saying. They're all sitting here on a couch again, so I'm not going to be paying attention to the direction of their legs crossing unless there's a substantial change in it. But from where they are here, if we were to rely on the legs crossing side of things, we're seeing Shane and Ryan crossing their legs in a way that keeps their body open to each other. Meanwhile, Steven is off to the side, kind of out of that little pod, and he is also crossing his legs differently. So there is that, but again, they're on a couch, they're sitting fairly close together, so I can't say for certain that that's an indicator of their mental state in general, but it is something to make note of. Also, when Ryan starts speaking immediately. He starts doing a palm upwards gesture with a manipulator in there. So the manipulator is the calming down. Would be something that's common in agitation. Anything in those areas where you see somebody manipulating, it's to calm the nervous system down. And then we're also seeing these palm up gestures from him. These are subservient or submissive gestures. That's very common to see in a pleading situation, oftentimes an apology. So from Ryan, we're already seeing some level of emotional synchronization with what he's saying and what he's displaying. That's good to be able to see. Let's go ahead and kind of listen to what they're saying and observe it. You know the drill. Let's go.
We've been reading the things you've been saying, and we're sorry for the way we handled this, as well as the way we communicated it. We understand where you're coming from, and we're making immediate changes.
First, we want to affirm that you
All right, gonna go ahead and pause here again. We're seeing, again, a lot of palm upward gestures from both Shane and Ryan. This submissive, subservient gesture is a very good thing to see during an apology because it reflects that I am open and submissive to the people that need to be apologized to. And that is an emotional standing in a genuine apology. If you start seeing people with a lot of dominating gestures or closed off gestures, anything that might be indicating a different emotional state, that's where you start to have to really hone in and pay attention. So we're noticing that. We're also seeing around Shane, on his face, you could see that this has taken a level of toll on him. You could see underneath his eyes that there is a little bit of perhaps sleeplessness or stress and anxiety coming out in the form of under-eye bags. That can be a pretty good physiological indicator as to how his prior week has been during this entire scenario. And then again, with Ryan, we're just seeing a very regular submissive gesture from him with some manipulators. These will come in very regularly as he's talking. He'll fiddle with his ring, he'll massage his hand, but constantly keeping this vein of submissiveness with his nonverbal communication. So far, seeing synchronization from at least Shane and Ryan. Let's continue watching.
You are the reason why we've been able to do anything at this company. You helped us every step of the way when we left BuzzFeed to start Watcher at the top of the pandemic in 2020.
You've supported us in so many ways by watching our content, attending our live shows, buying our merch, becoming members of our Patreon, and giving words of encouragement over the years. And we are incredibly grateful for your support.
We're sorry for how we originally delivered our goodbye message to YouTube. It was insensitive. We didn't properly express how much we appreciate all of you.
I'm going to go ahead and pause here. So something that I want to make note of is that Shane is displaying more of the emotional toll that would be expected in this sort of situation non-verbally. You can see that most clearly with his expressions, with, like I mentioned, the general falling of his face and his gestures as well. That's where that starts to really shine forth for Shane. On Ryan's side, you could hear it a lot in his tone. He has a very soft tone. Now, of course, all of this can be very much orchestrated. It could be something that Shane and Ryan are just fantastic actors and on-screen talent, so they're displaying this. However, it's difficult to be able to shift out of a filming mode that you've already been into to do an apology video if you're not actually feeling that apology. But since we are seeing this shift around, we're not used to seeing Shane and Ryan in such a melancholy state. So this is letting us know that on some level, this isn't a rehearsed or practiced mode that they settle into. So it's more likely to be synchronized coming from them. It's out of their normal wheelhouse, something to be able to make note of. So we're seeing that creep out of their nonverbal communication, both tonally and physically in various areas. But let's continue watching.
And we did a really bad job of explaining the reasoning behind this transition.
We also want to deeply apologize for our ignorance around the impact of the cost. We regret stating and implying that it's a price that anybody can afford, and we fully acknowledge that it is not. We didn't take the proper consideration for how this cost would affect you, and hope you know that we are taking this as a serious learning experience.
Go ahead and pause here. So this is one of the areas that people start to have issues. Not many people are having difficulty with Shane and Ryan in this, and I feel like I've explained kind of why that would be from the nonverbal standpoint. Now, when we get over to Steven, what we're noticing is, one, the gestures that he's using. First, he stays very, very stationary with the pose that he's in. He doesn't have any of the subservient gestures coming out. Every gesture that he does is hands down and pointer, and neither of those are good to see in an apology where your role is to admit wrong and accept responsibility. That's not a dominating time. So to see that exclusively come out kind of gives us a little bit of an idea as to what Steven's mindset might be behind it. Now, the other possibility is perhaps Steven is very just uncomfortable in general. It does not make sense with the context of what he has created on the internet in the past. Again, he has been on the internet for a minute, so it's not likely to be centered around a level of nerves in regards to this. Also, he's not showing any nonverbal indicators of wanting to self-soothe these agitation points down. He's very stable, and all of the gestures that he's doing are palms down. Along with that, if we go beyond his nonverbal communication and pay attention to the tone of his voice, we no longer feel or hear the emotion that we heard in Ryan and Shane's. We're hearing what seems to be almost like a flight attendant style voice or an infomercial style of speaking, where he's not apologizing. It seems as though he's exclusively explaining. And I think that exclusively explaining side of things is an important thing to be able to make note of, as it does show up later on in this apology as well. However, what we're hearing from them verbally is all good stuff. They are taking ownership for the mistake that they did make. They haven't carried out anything yet. They haven't dropped anything yet or anything along those lines, but they have made a mistake breaking the trust of their subscribers, and they are owning up to that. And they're not trying to make an excuse for that. They are simply saying that they made a mistake and that they're sorry for it. That's good verbally so far. Let's keep watching.
With that in mind, we're making some changes to ensure that there's a way for our community to continue watching our content for free.
If you want to watch our shows early and ad-free, you can catch them on the Watcher platform a month earlier. After that, you'll be able to watch our shows on YouTube for free. For those that have already subscribed to the platform, we are so grateful for your support. But if this change has you rethinking your membership, we will issue a full refund. And all past episodes and series will remain available on YouTube.
As for the question of why,
To go ahead and pause there. That alone, just nothing non-verbally in that area, but verbally speaking, that ownership and promise of action is a very solid indicator of people who do at least feel a level of remorse for what they have done. Now, whether or not it's because it's morally challenging for them and whatnot, that's more difficult to say. But verbally speaking, they're offering a solution and being willing to take a proactive action back towards the people that they offended. These are all very good things in a genuine apology. Again, dealing with whether or not they're actually feeling sorry or whether or not it's because it's been a bit of a nightmare online for them over the past week is difficult to say, but we are seeing some at least positive things in this apology. Let's continue watching.
the question of why we decided to launch our own platform. When we started Watcher in 2020, we wanted to create shows that we were proud of, that we had ownership over, and that would provide you the caliber of content that we felt you deserved. However, we were finding it harder and harder to stay relevant to advertisers and the constantly changing YouTube landscape. We faced some incredible
I'm going to go ahead and pause here. So when he shifts to however we were having difficulty, he starts talking about the ads again. We see both Shane and Ryan do a reposturing, which is interesting. Shane breaks eye contact with the camera. He looks down. There might be a little bit of consternation that flashes across his face. We see Steven not really do too much to emote, but he does nod in affirmation with what Ryan's saying, which, again, what Ryan's doing here is explaining, and so Steven is emoting with the explanation. He hasn't emoted with an apology portion yet, but he has emoted with his explanation, and he's also been demonstrating, both tonally and nonverbally, more of this explanation style, not so much apology. So we're seeing this come out and play across the three of them. And so that reposturing in regards to the advertisers is curious to me. Again, they're doubling down on this advertisers situation, which, as I said in my last video, for larger channels, oftentimes they want an ad segment. And for the majority of YouTube, that's what you would expect to see is an ad segment. And very, very, very rarely do the advertisers say, we need you to make a specific video to get this ad segment. If they do, you can push back, and oftentimes they will bend or sacrifice on their side of their terms to be able to make that happen, because it's a numbers game for them. They don't really care too much about the content. They care about whether or not it will drive good clicks to their product. So they're still doubling down on that, but I'm not sure what this reposturing is centered around. For those of you who do not know, reposturing is usually found when a change of role in either the statements being said, the line of dialogue is changing or shifting in some way, or it's emotionally driven to where it shifts from a certain emotion to a new emotion, and you'll see that reposturing come out, and that will be done. A lot of the times it'll be like a recrossing of legs, or you'll see somebody lean back and lean forward. There's just an overall body movement, and we see that, like I said, from two people in regards to this advertiser side of things. So there's something that's causing a substantial amount of agitation in regards to that, but it's difficult to say what that is. It is fascinating to see how it plays across the three different people on the couch, though. So regardless, let's keep watching.
Incredibly challenging decisions. We didn't want to compromise our content to ensure they met advertising requirements. And we definitely did not want to lay people off that have brought Watcher to life behind the scenes. And we didn't want to bring Watcher to a close, which would have happened if we stayed solely on YouTube.
That's why we decided to launch the platform, so that we as a company could continue, we could pay our staff fairly, and not only continue to make great content for you, but expand with new shows, new voices, all ad-free. And now with the...
All right, so paying attention to that across that entire spiel there, as Shane's talking, you'll see Ryan emoting along with that in the areas of more of the vein of apology. And then once again, when it switches around to more of the explanation side of things, then we'll see Steven come in and be in support of that. Which, to me, I'm starting to get a feeling of the dynamic between the three of them, perhaps where the emotional weight lies in the dynamic, as opposed to perhaps the money or fiscal weight behind it, everything. It is fascinating to be able to make note of so far. Let's just continue.
And now with the addition of accessible options, this is a decision that we all believe is the best for Watcher.
However, we realized that in figuring out the logistics of what this might take, we overlooked the way it would impact all of you. We hope you'll be patient with us through these mistakes, and we remain incredibly sorry that they were made in the first place.
We also want to directly address our Patreon community, who have played such a key role in supporting us from the very beginning.
I'm going to go ahead and pause here. Again, the nonverbal display that I'm getting from Steven feels like he's about to announce their new Kickstarter. Like they have some sort of product that they're going to push to Shark Tank, and he's about to start explaining how it's going to benefit people. It doesn't feel like he's at all remorseful or sorry for what's going on. It just feels like he is explaining, and that's something that people are picking up on again and again and again. The reason for that is there's no change in his vocals, there's no change in his intonation, his pitch, his force, anything that could indicate psychological processing there. We're not seeing any nonverbal reflection of it. We're not seeing reposturings. We're not seeing any level of self-soothing. We're seeing a very stable, stationary, emotionless Steven throughout the entirety of this, except for certain areas where there's an explanation or a possible excuse being offered for their actions that he then decides that he needs to non-verbally affirm with a head nod in there and perhaps a prolonged eye blink. So it's a fascinating dynamic play out between the three of them, and it does line up with what a lot of people were feeling and understanding from the initial video, the initial announcement, the initial problems that people were seeing. It lines up with what we're seeing now, but there's only a few seconds left of this. Let's keep watching.
All current Patreon members will receive a free subscription code to the platform. If you already purchased a subscription, please contact us and we will issue you a full refund.
We look forward to continuing to make shows and introducing all the incredible things that we've got planned for the platform along.
Okay, during this part, I'm getting a little bit of perhaps a defensiveness coming from Shane. What we're seeing is a substantial no shake as he's saying, we look forward to doing all this. Now, this no shake, it's pretty macro, it's pretty broad, so it's likely controlled, which was pushing me more down towards that vein of you would not believe, or you might find it unbelievable. But then we're seeing the one singular gesture from Shane in this. You can just see the tops of his fingers where he goes across and he's doing a defensive gesture. It goes from palms up, which is subservient and submissive, to palms forward, which is defensive. It's pushing back. It's different than pushing down, which is dominating or pointing. So we're seeing that come out. So with that, I feel like Shane's response to this is he doesn't want to go back on any of the things that he said in the prior video about wanting to release new shows and continue upping quality, things like that. He doesn't want to go back on that. And so during this time, he's sticking to that, but he understands that there was backlash around that last time, so he's getting defensive around it. That does make sense contextually, non-verbally with what he's saying. And instead of that being something that feels like a red flag, that lets us know as the audience that he is emotionally relating and linking himself to what he's saying. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a need for any of the defensive nonverbal communication to come in here. Let's continue watching.
And for the platform alongside YouTube. And in the meantime, we are forever grateful to all of the people who make up our community. And we hope that you consider joining us in this next chapter of our journey, whether that's on YouTube or on the platform.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. So that's the entirety of the apology video. It's not very long. It doesn't feel like they need to go and wax eloquent on anything for a very long time. Very short, sweet, to the point. Verbally, again, flawlessly done verbal apology. It felt scripted, obviously. We've already touched on that, but what they said verbally is good, down to promising further future action in regards to the benefit of the people that they hurt or offended during this time. They also apologized for their tone. Everything that they did verbally was good. Non-verbally speaking, what I saw from Shane and Ryan was an emotional connection to the words being said, despite how scripted they may or may not have been. The emotional connection was there. That came out through a number of various things: agitators, subservient gestures, reposturing in areas, tonal changes, some of the more physiological things that you can't control, like the lines under your eyes from exhaustion or stress, things like that. That all was very present in Ryan and Shane. And then when it came around to Steven, all of that was lost. It fell away and it was replaced by this performative, disconnected experience to where his tone didn't reflect at all the emotion of what was being said. His nonverbal communication gave no indicators of any level of agitation or need to self-soothe. There was no display of submissive or subservient nonverbal communication. It all maintained an explanatory tone and explanatory and dominating gestures, palms down and pointing. And this all boils back around to what many people are suspicious of, is that perhaps this was heavily, heavily driven by certain members of Watcher and was supported on various levels by the other ones for various reasons. It's all a very fascinating situation here. It sounds like Watcher, the people at Watcher, are doing what they can to possibly mend this very substantial wound that they've created. But the things that they're saying that they will do, which right now it's so early on that it's difficult to say that they will be carried out, but what they are saying that they will do are not indicators of people trying to pull the wool over somebody's eyes. Yes, it does feel like they are trying to save their butt a bit, which I think that makes some level of sense considering everything. But the fact that even some of their solutions are not fiscally beneficial to them. This idea of being like, well, the patrons get free subscriptions. If you have subscribed and you don't want that anymore, we will offer the payments back. You'll be fully refunded. These sorts of moves are exclusively beneficial to the people that are on the receiving end of it, because it does not benefit Watcher financially. And this was a financially driven move, as they have said again and again and again. With this apology, I think that it's a good apology. I think that there are obviously some interpersonal dynamics that are existent there that might be, I don't know, perhaps problematic in the future. Something to pay attention to and keep an eye on. But as for right now, it seems though Watcher regrets their decision to say that they're moving everything off of YouTube, and they have even offered solutions for people that are already supporting them. So that gets a check in my book. We'll see how this all goes out. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments below. A lot of you were very vocal about how you felt in regards to the initial release, so I'm curious about how you feel about this side of things. I've given you my reasons for things. But if you would like to be able to reach out to me, there's a number of ways to do that. I have a link tree in the description that has a number of different sources and resources on it. If you would like to go and check that out, that would be the best way to start down that path. But without further ado, that's all that I've got for the day. My name is Logan, and you have been oh so awesome as you always are, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.